My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 24 years old, and this is the story of how a single moment on stage completely changed my life. It was a rainy Tuesday in Seattle, Washington, and I was backstage at Comedy Underground, a small comedy club in Pioneer Square. My hands were shaking as I held my notebook, filled with jokes I had rehearsed hundreds of times in my apartment mirror. I had been working as a barista at a coffee shop near the University of Washington for 3 years. Every day, I served coffee to hurried students and stressed professionals, secretly dreaming of the day I would be on stage making people laugh. During my breaks, I would scribble funny observations about customers on napkins, like the man who always ordered coffee that's hot, but not too hot, or the woman who made important phone calls while dramatically whispering. That specific night was the club's monthly open mic night. I had signed up 3 times before, but always ended up running away at the last minute. This time would be different. At least that's what I kept telling myself as I listened to the laughter coming from the main stage. Sarah Mitchell? The organizer called my name, consulting his clipboard wet from the rain dripping from the ceiling. Are you ready? My stomach did a flip. Yes, I'm ready. My voice came out higher than normal. The previous comedian finished his set with a joke about modern relationships that drew laughter from the small audience of about 40 people. As he left the stage, I positioned myself in the wings, watching the faces illuminated by the club's amber light. There were young couples on dates, groups of college friends, and some loners sitting at the bar. Everyone, welcome Sarah Mitchell. The host announced my name, and I walked toward the stage. The first steps were calm. I had practiced this walk so many times, it had become automatic. But as I approached the microphone, something strange happened. The low conversation that normally echoes during beginner comedian performances simply stopped. The silence was so intense, I could hear the rain hitting the windows and the distant traffic on First Avenue. 40 pairs of eyes watched me with attention I had never experienced. It was as if an invisible energy had taken over the room. I grabbed the microphone with trembling hands. Hi everyone, I began, my voice echoing through the speakers. I'm Sarah, and I work at a coffee shop. You know how it is. I spend all day asking people if they want extra milk in their coffee. But what I really want to know is if they want extra drama in their lives. No laughter. The silence continued, but there was something different about it. It wasn't disinterest, it was pure concentration, as if each person was genuinely curious about what I would say next. I continued. There's a customer who comes to the coffee shop every morning and asks for coffee that matches his personality. I'm always tempted to give him lukewarm water. Still nothing. But instead of panicking, I started improvising, abandoning my prepared script. Actually, I said, adjusting my position, you're all so quiet that I'm starting to think I served you decaf this afternoon. Or maybe you're waiting for me to say something actually funny. That's when it happened. A woman in the front row started to smile. Then a man at the bar let out a low chuckle. Like a chain reaction, others began to gradually relax. You know, I continued, gaining confidence, I think I discovered my superpower. I can make an entire room of people listen to me in complete silence. My mom should have put me in public speaking school instead of letting me watch Netflix. Some genuine laughter echoed through the club. What surprised me most was that the attentive silence continued between my jokes. It was as if I had captured something special, a real connection with the audience. I finished my 5-minute set. Thank you for listening to me so carefully. Usually people only do that when I'm taking their coffee orders. Tomorrow morning, when you walk down 4th Avenue and see a barista smiling more than usual, remember, she might have just discovered she can stop time in a room full of people. The applause was warm, but what really struck me were the comments. She has something special, a woman murmured. Never seen anything like this at an open mic night, a man commented. As I put away my notebook, the organizer approached. Sarah, right? Listen, do you want to talk about doing regular shows here? The organizer's proposal, Marcus, still echoed in my mind the next morning as I prepared lattes at Higher Grounds Coffee. It was Thursday, and the morning rush was intense. Medical students lined up with deep dark circles, asking for extra shots of espresso. Sarah, you're different today, commented my coworker Jessica, organizing pastries in the display case. There's a glow in your eyes. Actually, I had spent the night awake, replaying every second of the performance. The feeling of connection with the audience was completely new. For years, I had felt invisible, just another barista among thousands in Seattle. I did a comedy performance last night, I told Jessica, while preparing a macchiato. And something strange happened. Strange how? Jessica stopped and looked at me with curiosity. The audience went completely silent, not the embarrassing kind, but like they were really paying attention. It was intense. Jessica smiled. Maybe you found your superpower, Sarah. Some people are born to make noise, others to make people stop and listen. The door opened and Marcus walked in. Hi, Sarah. Can I talk to you for a minute? My heart raced. I asked Jessica to cover for me and joined Marcus at a corner table. He ordered an Americano and got straight to the point. Sarah, I've been managing comedy events in Seattle for 15 years. I've seen hundreds of comedians starting out, and I can tell you, what happened last night isn't normal. He took a sip of coffee. That kind of stage presence, that ability to hold attention even in silence, that's not something you teach. You're born with it. I shook my head, processing, but I couldn't even make them laugh properly. My timing was all wrong. I abandoned half my material. Exactly, Marcus interrupted, slapping his hand on the table. You improvised, adapted, created a unique moment. Sarah, how many comedians can make 40 people stop talking just by walking on stage? I had never thought of it that way. For me, it had been terrifying, but from his perspective, it had been special. I want to offer you a regular slot on Thursdays, he continued. 15 minutes a week. You can develop your style, try new material. My first reaction was panic. Marcus, I don't even know if I'm good at this. It was literally my first time on stage. Do you think all great comedians knew they were good on their first try? He laughed. Dave Chappelle bombed for months. Amy Schumer took years to develop her stage persona. The raw talent is there, Sarah. The question is whether you're willing to polish it. I looked around the coffee shop, the machines making noise, Jessica serving the line, the familiar smell of ground coffee. This had been my life for 3 years. It was comfortable, predictable, safe. I need to think, I said finally. Of course, but don't think too long. Marcus stood up. Talent like yours doesn't come around every day. After he left, I returned to the counter with my mind buzzing. Jessica immediately noticed my agitation. So, what did he want? He offered me regular shows at his club. The words came out hesitantly. Sarah, that's incredible, Jessica shouted, making customers look our way. You're going to accept, right? I don't know. It's scary. What if I'm not good? What if yesterday was just luck? What if you are good? What if yesterday was just the beginning? Jessica shot back. Sarah, you've been talking about comedy since I started working here. How many times have you made me laugh telling stories about customers? She was right. Humor had always been my way of dealing with the world, of connecting with people. The rest of the day passed in a haze of reflections. Every customer made me think of stories for the stage. The woman who ordered a frappuccino with 6 modifications. The man who insisted his name was Batman for the cup. When closing time came, my decision was made. I grabbed my phone and texted Marcus. I accept the offer. When do we start? The response came instantly. Next Thursday, 9 p.m. Get ready to discover what you're really capable of. My first regular performance was scheduled for the following Thursday, and I had spent the week oscillating between excitement and absolute terror. During breaks at the coffee shop, I scribbled jokes on napkins, tested material with Jessica, and observed customers with new eyes. Jessica had become my unofficial comedy partner. That joke about the customer who asks for coffee not too hot is good, she said on Wednesday. But you could develop more about how he tests the temperature. Thursday arrived like a storm of nerves. Throughout the day, my performance was erratic. I forgot orders, mixed up names on cups, spilled cinnamon on the floor. Jessica let me leave early. Go home, take a relaxing bath, and remember, you've already proven you can do this, she said. Last week's audience is still talking about you. I arrived at Comedy Underground at 8:30. The club was fuller. Regular Thursdays attracted a more loyal crowd. Marcus greeted me with an encouraging smile. Nervous? He asked, noticing how I played with my notebook pages. Completely terrified, I admitted. What if last week was just luck? What if I can't repeat that connection? Sarah, take a deep breath. Marcus put his hand on my shoulder. Don't try to repeat last week. Each performance is unique. Your job is to read the room and respond to what you find. The first 2 comedians were well received, drawing consistent laughs. While waiting my turn, I observed how they interacted with the audience, how they built their jokes, how they handled moments of silence. "Everyone, welcome back Sarah Mitchell." Marcus introduced me, and I walked to the stage with my heart pounding. This time, the audience didn't fall completely silent. There was low conversation continuing, people checking phones, the normal noise of a club on a Thursday night. It was expected, but left me slightly disappointed. "Hi everyone," I began. "I'm Sarah, and I work at a coffee shop. Last week, I told you about my customer who wants coffee that matches his personality. Well, today he showed up again, and this time asked for something adventurous, but with a touch of mystery. I gave him an espresso with a pinch of pepper, and didn't explain why." Good laughter echoed through the room. Encouraged, I continued with new material I developed during the week. "You know the difference between working at a coffee shop and doing comedy? At the coffee shop, when nobody laughs at my jokes, at least they still pay me for the coffee." More laughter, and I felt the audience relaxing. But about 5 minutes in, something unexpected happened. A woman in the third row started talking loudly on her phone, clearly drunk, disrupting not only my performance, but bothering other customers. For a moment, I felt completely lost. This wasn't in my rehearsed script. At the coffee shop, I could simply ask someone to leave, but on stage, I needed to handle the situation while keeping the show going. "Sorry, everyone," the woman said too loudly, covering the phone with her hand. "It's my mom. She always calls when I'm trying to have fun." The room became uncomfortable. Some laughed nervously, others whispered among themselves. I could feel myself losing control of the situation. Then, something instinctive happened. Instead of ignoring it, I leaned into the microphone. "Don't worry, we'll wait. But if your mom asks where you are, you can tell her you're in a class on how to be an exemplary daughter." The woman laughed loudly, hung up the phone, and shouted, "Sorry, honey, continue." The audience applauded, and I realized I had just learned a valuable lesson. The ability to improvise was as important as having good prepared material. I finished with more confidence, including spontaneous observations about the interaction that had just happened. The applause was warm, and several people approached afterward to praise not just my jokes, but mainly how I had handled the unexpected situation. "That was incredible," said Derek, another local comedian. "The way you turned an interruption into part of the show, that can't be taught." Marcus approached with a proud smile. "So, how was it?" "Scary, challenging, and incredible," I replied. "I feel like I learned more in those 15 minutes than in any other moment of my life." "Welcome to the real world of comedy, Sarah," Marcus laughed. "Same time next week?" I looked around, the warm lights, the smell of beer and laughter, the smiling faces. "Yes," I said without hesitation. Next week. 2 months had passed since my first regular performance, and Thursday night had become the most important part of my week. I continued working at Higher Grounds during the day, but now saw every interaction as an opportunity to develop material. My notebook had grown into a complete file of observations and jokes. Jessica had become my biggest fan and most honest critic. "You're different, Sarah," she commented on a Tuesday, training a new employee. "More confident. It's like you found your voice." She was right. Comedy had changed my perspective on everything. Situations that used to stress me now became potential material. Difficult customers became interesting characters. Daily problems transformed into observations about the human condition. That specific Thursday, something extraordinary happened. When I arrived at Comedy Underground, Marcus greeted me with unexpected news. "Sarah, I have a proposal," he said, looking more serious. "There's a talent agent from Los Angeles in town, and he'll be in the audience tonight. He's looking for new talent for a comedy festival in California." My stomach did that familiar flip, but this time it was accompanied by excitement instead of just terror. "Does he know I've only been doing this for 2 months?" "He knows you have something special," Marcus replied. "And Sarah, I agree. You've evolved more in these 2 months than many do in years." As I prepared, I reflected on the journey that had begun with that moment of absolute silence on stage. Each Thursday had brought new challenges, nights when my material didn't work, difficult audiences, moments of self-doubt, but also growth, genuine connections, and a sense of purpose I had never experienced serving coffee. When I went on stage that night, I felt a different calm. It wasn't the absence of nervousness, but the presence of confidence built through experience. "Hi, everyone," I began, looking at the familiar faces that were now part of my regular audience. "I'm Sarah, and 2 months ago, I was just a barista who dreamed of doing comedy. Today, I'm a barista who does comedy and dreams of not having to make coffee anymore for people who ask for something surprising at 7 in the morning. Immediate laughter filled the club. I had learned to read the room, adjust material in real time, create moments of genuine connection. I continued with a mix of new material and observations that had become my regular hits, always with small variations based on previous reactions. You know what the biggest change in my life has been since I started comedy? I asked, making a dramatic pause I had learned to control perfectly. Now, when someone irritates me at the coffee shop, instead of getting frustrated, I think, thanks for the material. My therapist says, this is transforming trauma into art. I say it's transforming annoying customers into money. The audience was completely engaged, and I could feel that special energy from my first night, but now I knew how to channel it. In the final minutes, I decided to do something spontaneous. I abandoned my planned material and spoke from the heart. I want to thank all of you who have been coming on Thursdays and supporting me on this crazy journey, I said, feeling genuine emotion rising. 2 months ago, I was terrified on this same stage, not knowing if I could make anyone laugh. You not only laughed with me, but taught me that comedy isn't just about making jokes. It's about creating moments of human connection, finding joy in unexpected places, transforming life's small frustrations into something that unites us. The applause that followed was different from any other I had received. It was warm, sustained, and charged with energy that went beyond entertainment. It was recognition, support, and celebration of a shared journey. After the performance, Marcus introduced me to the Los Angeles agent, Robert Chen, who had worked with several successful comedians. Sarah, your evolution in these 2 months is impressive, he said, shaking my hand. You have a unique voice, a natural ability to connect with audiences, and most importantly, you have something to say. I'd like to talk to you about some opportunities. While Robert explained about the comedy festival and other possibilities, I looked around Comedy Underground, the small club that had become my second home, the people who had become my community, Seattle, that had given me the opportunity to discover who I really was. I need to think about all this, I told Robert, who understood completely and gave me his card. Later that night, walking through Seattle's wet streets toward my apartment, I reflected on how my life had changed dramatically in such a short time. 2 months ago, I was invisible, a barista among thousands. Now, I had a voice, an audience, and possibilities I had never dreamed of. The most surprising thing was realizing that the most important change hadn't been external, but internal. I had found courage to be vulnerable, strength to face my fears, and wisdom to transform negative experiences into something positive. On Friday morning, when I returned to Higher Grounds Coffee, Jessica immediately noticed the difference in my energy. How was last night? She asked, preparing the first batch of pastries. It changed everything, I replied, tying my apron. But you know what's most incredible? No matter where this journey takes me, I know I'll be okay, because I learned I have the ability to adapt, grow, transform any situation into an opportunity. As I prepared the first coffee of the morning, I looked at the customers coming in, each with their own stories, challenges, and hopes. Instead of seeing just coffee orders, I saw complex human beings, each dealing with their own version of stepping onto life's stage every day. Good morning, I said to the first customer, smiling genuinely. What can I prepare to make your day a little better? And in that moment, I realized I had found my purpose, not just in making people laugh, but in creating moments of human connection, whether on stage or behind a coffee shop counter in Seattle. Because in the end, we're all just trying to find our voice and make a difference, one smile at a time.